My boss leaned over the counter, stared me straight in the eyes, and demanded I pay her $4. Money I never stole. Money I never even touched. What happened next forced her to work 70 hours straight, alone, and I've never smiled harder in my life. If you've ever been talked down to by a boss who thought they owned you, if you've ever been punished for standing up for yourself, hit that like button, subscribe, and settle in. Because this revenge is quiet, legal, and devastating. At the time, I was a college student in Poland, just trying to do what everyone expected of me. Get a job, get experience, don't complain. So I took a part-time job as a receptionist and waiter at a hotel restaurant. It was one of those family-owned places that tries very hard to look high-end, but in reality survives on underpaid workers and forced smiles. The restaurant was on the ground floor, hosting events like wakes, first communion dinners, and regular guests. 2 floors above were hotel rooms. I handled reservations, checked people in, seated guests, managed invoices, answered phones, and handled cash, often all at once. It was a family business, which should have been my first red flag. The manager, who I'll call Amy, was in her early 30s and clearly hadn't earned the position. She had inherited it. She wasn't strict or professional. She was entitled, condescending. The kind of boss who talked down to you just to remind herself she had power. And yet, whenever her mother showed up, Amy suddenly became small. Her mother, Big Amy, co-owned the business and had a presence that sucked the air out of the room. Every worker felt it. Conversations stopped. People stood straighter. The vibe shifted instantly. You didn't need to be told she was in charge. You felt it in your chest. Because I handled cash, we had daily balance sheets. Sometimes things didn't add up perfectly. Once I overcharged a guest by about 30 zlotys. I felt terrible and documented it immediately. Other times, the register was short. One time, it was short by exactly 17 Polish zloty, about $4. At my previous job, a massive supermarket chain, this wouldn't even register as an issue. As long as it wasn't theft, mistakes were considered part of doing business. No one ever expected a cashier to cover the difference out of pocket. But this place was different. One Sunday, just before summer season, the busiest time of the year, Big Amy came in to check the books. She flipped through paperwork, stopped, tapped the page with her finger, and said it casually, like she was talking about the weather. "You're short. You need to pay this back." I honestly thought I misheard her. I told her, politely, that I didn't believe I was required to do that, and that my contract didn't include anything like that. She didn't argue, she didn't explain, she just dismissed me and told me to talk to Amy. Later that day, Amy confronted me, and it wasn't a conversation. She immediately went on the offensive, talking about how no one had ever behaved like this before and how it was obvious I should pay. I asked her calmly what happened when I overcharged customers. Without hesitation, she said that money goes to the business. That was the moment I realized how unfair the system was. If my mistake benefited them, they kept the money. If it didn't, I paid. I brought up my contract again, a single poorly written page with vague language and no clause about covering losses. Her solution was to add it later, but I would still have to pay now. Something inside me shifted. Not anger, clarity. This wasn't about money, it was about control, and I was done pretending otherwise. So I told her I was willing to terminate my contract that same day, even waiving my right to 2 weeks' notice. She froze. Summer season had just started. The only other trained receptionist was on vacation. If I left, Amy would be the only person capable of running the front desk. 9 to 9, 7 days a week. All because she couldn't let go of $4. She stormed out again. The rest of the staff stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Most of them were older, with families and responsibilities. They couldn't afford to do what I was doing, but I could. I didn't need the job to survive, and for the first time, I felt that power clearly. I waited at the desk, barely working, talking quietly with coworkers. The tension hung in the air all day. And then, right before closing, Amy came back. She didn't apologize. She didn't look at me. She handed me a termination agreement and waited. I signed it immediately. I smiled. I thanked her. She said nothing. For the rest of the day, she walked around the building sulking, watching everything obsessively, making sure nothing went wrong because a college student had refused to be bullied. They spent around 40 hours training me, paid 2 wages during that time, ran a recruitment process, lost an employee right before peak season. All over 17 PLN, money they never even proved I took. And Amy, she worked that entire week, alone, long shifts, no escape. I walked out lighter than I'd felt in months. She wanted $4. Instead, she got 70 hours of unpaid karma. Some bosses don't want loyalty, they want submission. And the moment you stand your ground, they lose everything they thought they had over you. If this story felt satisfying, smash that like button. Tell us in the comments, have you ever walked away from a toxic job? And subscribe for more stories where standing up for yourself is the real revenge, eh?